Oh, welcome everyone to another club coaching session in District 35. This is now the third one that we've done on a bi-monthly basis. All intended to help those clubs that either have low membership or are struggling to retain membership. And we're going to have a different topic every session. Today's topic is on mentoring, something that most of us, I think, could benefit from learning more about this topic, how it's done well. And I'm going to remind you of the format. This is, we're going to have a 30-minute presentation. And so generally just listen to that. And then we're going to have 30 minutes for questions and answers. It'll be open forum, but as far as the content, let's stay focused on the topic of the day, which is mentoring. So our presenter tonight is Susan Bruchafer. She's been a member in Toastmasters for about 20 years, and she's currently the Vice President membership for Menominee Falls Toastmasters Club. Prior to this, she was a 12-year member of a corporate club, Direct Supply Champion Chatters Toastmaster Club. She held various officer roles. Could I remind everyone to put yourself on mute? Great. She's held various officer roles, including vice president membership. She started the mentor program with the Champion Chatters and developed a mentor toolkit for the Menominee Falls Club. Susan is a Pathways mentor, a club coach, Area A1 area director. She's a pretty busy woman, and she's completed both the dynamic leadership and engaging humor paths. She's currently working on motivational strategies. As a registered corporate coach and senior learning consultant in her business life, Susan has an affinity towards helping people succeed both personally and professionally. Providing a successful mentoring experience to new and returning Toastmasters goes a long way when recruiting, retaining, and helping Toastmasters feel a part of their clubs. This evening, Susan will share her experience with mentoring new members. Please welcome Susan Bruchafer.
Thank you so much, Keith. I am going to do what I hate, and that is press that green button on the bottom that says share screen. So let's try it out. And it worked, yay.
Here we go.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to be a presenter this evening. This is a topic that I'm very excited about. Before we get into the formal information, I would like to share with you the tale of two Toastmasters. So meet my two Toastmasters. We have Susan with a Z and we have Susanna. Let's look at Susan with a Z's first month as a new Toastmaster. Before her very first club meeting as a new member, she was introduced to the club members by an email to everyone. She received her new member welcome packet from the Vice President membership. She had an email introduction to her mentor, and she was already registered for the new member orientation, which she had attended already with her mentor. At the first club meeting as a new mentor, she was heartily, warmly greeted by her mentor upon arrival. She had the opportunity to mingle with members, club officers, and meet guests. At the start of the meeting, when the president opened the meeting, he presented Susan with a Z with a new member certificate and a round of applause. She was asked for feedback on her meeting experience following the meeting. And by the end of month one as a new Toastmaster, she had selected her Pathways path, scheduled her icebreaker, and scheduled her first meeting role. Wow, that's a lot in 1 month, but that's because she had a good mentor. Let's look at Susanna's first month. Before her first club meeting as a new mentor, she had received an email confirming the meeting's logistics. At the club meeting, she was entering the room, and this could have been virtual, could have been brick and mortar. She asked around to see if she was in the right place, and then she took a seat. At the meeting start, she was greeted with a welcome to all new members. Unfortunately, she was the only member and her name was never even mentioned. By the end of her first month, she had got lost on the club's website. She tried to figure out pathways. She wondered what icebreaker, and for some reason, she missed the next club meeting. I believe she had another commitment. Now think about it. What was your first Toastmaster experience like? It had to be one of these two or someplace in the middle. But let's see who we think stayed as a functioning, well-oriented member. Yes, Susan with a Z, and she may look familiar to you. This was Susan after her first month as a new Toastmaster. And poor Susanna, or should we say, oh, Susanna, her first month, she was gone. Okay, well, here you see Susan with a Z. She's very happy to be her end of her first month as a new Toastmaster. And poor Susanna, oh, Susanna, we're going to have to say goodbye to her as a member. Moving forward, or trying to move forward. There we go. That didn't do it. All right. Formal mentor program versus an active mentor program. We often refer to one of our club's attributes as having formal mentor programs. The great success of Toastmasters over many years has been the result of members helping other members. And so mentoring is really a formal extension of that philosophy. But I need to share with you something that I learned as one of over 800 Toastmasters who were participating in the Achieving Club Excellence webinar this past Wednesday. The first part of that webinar was devoted to club quality, and I learned what's on the slide that you're looking at. Formal means a mentor is assigned, the mentor works with the new member, and all hope that things are working well. An active mentor program, however, means yes, a mentor is assigned, and the mentor and the protege work together. The mentor and the protege both are held accountable for success. One of the participants in the webinar, and I don't want to mess up his name too much, but he was called Becky by his first name, stated it best by saying, hope is not a strategy. So while we're members or we're club officers and we hope things will work out as a mentor relationship begins, we can do what we can to make sure that it is accountable. That's by check-ins with the mentor and the protege, observing how the mentor is moving forward the protege, and looking for progress from the protege. So let's look at some of the things that we can do to make it an active mentor program. Maybe. First, I'm going to define the term protege. So all Toastmasters mentoring materials that I've seen since the rollout of Pathways have referred to the person being mentored as the protege rather than the mentee. And since that's the term that's being used in the Pathways mentoring projects, I'm going to be using it today. Our topics tonight, our topics tonight, some people may think that anyone could be a mentor, but there are some characteristics for a person to consider before mentoring and making that commitment. A mentor does have some responsibilities that are not going to be accomplished simply by going through a checklist. How does a mentor begin that relationship with his protege? What happens after that important first meeting with the mentor? There are forms and resources available to help you in your mentor role. And I'm going to add just a few comments about proteges being, I'll call them unique or different. Mentor characteristics. As a mentor, you are one of the protege's biggest supporters. You need to have a high level of confidence that you're comfortable in that role before you enter into the relationship. Knowing when to step aside and knowing when to let the protege learn independently is important. The mentor shares his or her expertise, helps the protege gain knowledge by communicating through personal experiences and sharing resources. The person needs to know how to balance sharing his expertise with allowing the protege to actually learn on their own. A mentor should have flexibility, enough flexibility to be able to lead when needed and to sometimes follow the lead of the protege. Positive, supportive, and caring. Provide constructive guidance when the protege faces struggles and challenges as they work toward their goals. While completing some projects, a protege may simply need somebody to listen to because they have thoughts and sometimes they will have frustrations. Other times, it may be a benefit for them to hear from the mentors regarding any obstacles that they had and what they did to overcome those obstacles. Our mentors have responsibilities. These are the ones I was talking about that you're not going to see a checklist. You cannot see if I filled my commitments, if I put the protege first. Only I know that and the protege knows it. So realistic expectations include practical elements like attending, both of us attending the meetings that we agree to, both club meetings as well as our own mentor meetings, completing tasks that we said we were going to do, and following through on requests that maybe one or the other made. Fulfilling commitments. If either the protege or the mentor fails to follow through on a regular basis, that relationship's going to collapse and both are going to have hard feelings in the future. The point of the relationship is putting the membership skills and confidence first, building it up, not honoring us, the mentors, and our expertise. We're secondary to making that happen. Oftentimes, and this might not be considered from a person who's thinking about being a mentor, within the mentoring relationship, there are opportunities for obtaining personal validation, but that should not be the reason why a person becomes a mentor. By nature, mentoring is a selfless act. The prospective mentors should take the time to evaluate their reasons for choosing to be a mentor and assessing their own expectations. Throughout the session this evening, I'm going to be answering a couple of questions that we had received before this session. And this is a good place to answer the first one. Should a mentor first complete Pathways Mentor Program prior to serving as a mentor? Well, I fully support the very complete, very informative mentor program. It is not a formal requirement. There was an issue of Toastmasters magazine a while back that talked about the requirements being a Toastmaster for 6 months, completing the mentor training offered by the district, expertise in whatever area the protege is going to be setting his or her goals, and devoting 2 hours per month for 6 months. That's one person's information. In Menominee Falls Club, which is my home club, we say 3 speeches, which means usually you've completed your level 1, 3 meetings, including being a Toastmaster, and more importantly, having a genuine interest and willingness to help a new member grow. District 35 does offer mentor training, and all you need to do is talk to your area director or look on the district calendar to find out if that might be coming up. The second question that was asked is the time commitment. There is no per se time commitment. It's going to vary by how fast your protege moves along, how fast they're getting things, how interested they are in it. In our club, we recommend the first meeting is about 1.5 hours, only because it's a long one. You're giving them a lot of information, but then every other meeting after that is pretty much shorter, maybe a half hour. And we recommend doing it on opposite weeks. So if your club meeting is 1 week, you would meet with your mentor the next week for approximately a half hour. Working with your protege before that first mentor meeting. I'm going to be referring to some documents as we continue to go through that you'll probably want to use for working with your protege. And I'm going to show you samples of those when we get to the end of the session at the forms and resources area. First of all, connect. Connect with that protege within 48 hours after learning who the person is, who you've been assigned to. You can do that by phone, you can do that by email, but connect. Let them know that they're not out there by themselves. Introduce yourself as the mentor so they know who it is that's connecting with them. Ask the protege to confirm a date and time for your first mentor meeting. So you could do that, of course, but we want to start giving responsibility to the protege. Let him or her set that schedule, confer with you to make sure that it fits with your calendar. You can meet via phone, you could do Zoom meetings, and if you do, send an invitation via Zoom for that link. There are several pre-meeting documents that you might want to share with your protege. First is the new member profile. Ask the protege to complete and send you a copy of that document, because you can use that to start your conversation. It offers some background about the protege and the goals that he or she may be trying to attain. This is a good place to answer another question that we had received ahead of time. We were asked, does Toastmasters offer any scripts for new mentors that will help them in the breaking the ice with that important first meeting? And I thought about it, and actually your script is the perfect use of the new mentor profile. Also, Basecamp explains the mentor and protege relationship, and all of the pathways level 2 have an intro to Toastmaster mentoring. So there's a lot of resources out there for you. One of the next forms that you might want to have them use is the protege success plan. That is where they're defining their goals in Toastmasters. Send it to them ahead of time. You can help them fill that out at the first meeting. And then I'm putting something I'm going to refer to a couple of times. And my note here is request the protege view the Learning to Use Toastmasters Pathway Basecamp. I will show you what this is, but this extra is put in there because sometimes there's some documents that you have in the process of being a mentor learned have been very useful to a new member. And you've made them a part of maybe what you use in your bag of tricks when you are mentoring a new person. So I'm going to refer to this as the Learning to Use Toastmasters Pathway and Basecamp. It's a PDF that was written by a Toastmaster DTM who I believe resides in Canada. And I'll give you more information about that a little bit later. The next thing is to enroll your protege in the virtual new member orientation. Now, some of you may not even be aware of this. I know that Chris is aware of it. The Toastmasters Club Cream City Communicators offers to new prospects as well as new members a new member orientation once a month, the first Wednesday of the month, and it's offered virtually. Depending upon when I start working with the protege, I may enroll that person before he even has officially become a member of the club, or at the latest, the very first Wednesday after they join Toastmasters. If you have not participated in this excellent introduction to Toastmasters and Pathways, sign yourself up. It's good to know what your new protege is learning, so sign yourself up with him or her, or do it at your leisure. It covers new members' experiences, materials, and pathways, and is the perfect way to get started in your discussion with that new member. Now, we're going to move into your first mentor meeting. You're going to hear me say this a couple of times. Assume nothing. No news from your new person is not a good sign. Follow up with your protege if you haven't received potential dates and times that you asked for to start that first meeting. And we know that you already have asked them to do it, so it's a good time to follow up. Send a meeting agenda. You may be thinking, why so formal? It shows your commitment as a mentor. It identifies the items that you're both going to cover, so the protege is prepared to include, and you can include a reminder of the forms that you requested if you have not yet received them. Cue the protege in that you're going to be sending agendas before every mentor meeting to keep both of you on track with the commitments that you make. Make sure you review the items that your protege has received in part of the new member process, possibly from other officers in the club, because you're probably going to get some questions on those. And make sure you review those forms, new member profile, protege success plan, and any additional thing you asked him or her to take a look at so that you know the content, because they should have some questions. Then break the ice. And I left a hint, your new member profile will walk you through that. Be sure you've read the protege's profile that he or she has sent to you. And that's where you can start asking about their interests, their family, and you may be surprised. You're making a new friend, and they may use that opportunity to tell you their life story, focus on business only, or just Toastmasters goals. Use your toasty sense so that it's a conversation. It's not an inquisition. Decide on future meeting cadence. This is for the protege and for you. How often do you want to meet? How often do you want to check in? I suggested every other meeting week where you don't have a club meeting. That usually works great, but let them know you're also what I call on call for questions anytime in between, because you don't know what's going to come up and you don't want that to be the holdback from them moving forward. Discuss best ways for the two of you to communicate. Email, my friends, does not always work for everyone. Get the protege's suggestion, and you can offer phone calls and also Zooms. They work very well. Discuss and complete the protege success plan. We'll be walking through that in a little while, but this will be determining short, mid, and long-term goals for your protege. Check the protege's comfort on accessing your club website. Was he or she able to get in? How about Toastmasters.org? Were they able to get into pathways? If you can, it's very helpful to log into a Zoom meeting with your protege, have him or her take control of the screen, and then show you how far they got. You can easily guide them then because you're seeing where they're at. Set goals for your first club meeting as a new member. Do you want them to just observe? Maybe they want to participate, perhaps take a role, take notes, meet after the club to find out what worked. And then a reminder, if you have scheduled that new member orientation, send a reminder to the protege to make sure he or she has that on their calendar. Answer any remaining questions and then schedule that next meeting, which will be after the first club meeting. Continue to follow up, and as often as you have to, without being what I call a PITA. I'd rather say I am a motivator than a PITA, but we all know what that is. Even though you've had communication with your protege, not everybody takes action. And so while the protege is supposed to, as we want them to, take the lead on most of the actions, the mentor should follow up when the silence gets a little too subdued. As the date for your new member orientation, if you have signed them up, as that approaches, make sure that you remind them that it's Cream City Communicators, NMO, new meeting member orientation, and it is virtual. Take a role. What before that club meeting, the first club meeting after becoming a member, might they be interested in? If a protege has been a visitor to several of your club meetings already, he or she might be excited to just jump in. If this is the protege's first club meeting as a new Toastmaster, or maybe they're new to the club and have been a former Toastmaster, maybe observing the meeting and watching for a while will help to set the comfort level. Timer is a good role as a first role because it requires really good listening, logging of times, but not a lot of talking. If it's the first meeting, if at your first meeting with your protege, he or she was really excited about giving the icebreaker, maybe help them sign up if they haven't already by having them share their screen and walking you through at your club website. Encourage them to listen to table topics and if comfortable, volunteer to be a table topic speaker. Now imagine you are the new protege, new club mentor, and a little bit before the meeting, several days, you get this really nice reminder, be it text, email, or call about the upcoming meeting. It's your mentor telling you how excited he or she is to have you be at your first club meeting. And then follow up after the club meeting as a member. Connect with your protege to check in on the first club meeting goals that you may have set, ask their questions, gain feedback. If your club meeting is in person, you may be able to do this right after the meeting. If you're both participating virtually, you might both stay logged in after the meeting. Specifically ask, but in your own words, tell me what you like most about our club meeting today. What parts of the meeting may I explain a little bit further? Having been both a guest at a meeting and now as a new member, which of the meeting roles do you currently think would be the biggest challenge for you, and why is that? If not already scheduled, how about doing your icebreaker at our next meeting? Help the protege sign up for that icebreaker, hands-on if need be, at the club website. Ongoing responsibilities. You notice the type got a little bit smaller here, and you can see that there are some plants growing. So just like the plants going from smaller to larger leaves, we have to keep caring about our protege. Here are some basic guidelines. Follow up. I know you've heard that before. After each club meeting until you feel the protege is confident. Text, email, set up Zoom meetings, ask for feedback, and answer questions. Follow up with a check-in call if the protege doesn't reply to your request within a couple of days. They could have gotten busy, or they may need a little nudge. Congratulate your protege on meeting his or her roles, taking meeting roles, and also giving speeches. Provide feedback in addition to the formal evaluation that he or she's going to get from the evaluator. Schedule the next role or speech after the protege has already completed one. If the protege is absent from a club meeting, you have to wonder why. Show some concern. Send a check-in, make a call, send that email, and offer to schedule their next role at the meeting. You want to make sure they're still engaged and that things didn't happen. Provide some suggestions for speaking at the next meeting so they don't lose their momentum. Could they give a project speech? Could they take a meeting role? Could they be a table topics, either host or speaker? Offer some topic suggestions for speeches if they're struggling with a specific topic. Most will have a lot of ideas on what they want to do. You might have to hone them in a little bit so they don't go too broad on any specific topic. Offer to review the protege's speech outline and give some feedback. Offer to listen to their speech before they present it at the club meeting. Provide feedback, and then as a bonus, time them. Let them know what kind of time you've done. I have even done some videotaping of practice speeches where the protege and I then watched it a little bit later and really dissected what went well and what she or he could have done better. Especially, don't forget to ensure the protege continues to move forward in pathways. Have they added their picture to Basecamp? Do they have updates to their profile? Have they been logging any meeting roles? Do they read the e-feedback that may have been sent to them? Are they providing feedback online in Basecamp to others? And then always ask the protege how you can serve him or her better as a mentor. I know everybody's excited now about forms and resources. I'm always excited about those myself because I like things in hand, concrete, and I'm a checklist person. But I'm going to share this with you. To start off, though, I want to let you know that 2 of them, and you'll see them noted on there as the success plan and the meeting tracker, are part of the Pathways Mentor program. That means that you cannot get those by just Googling them or going to Toastmasters.org. You have to have actually taken part in the Pathways Mentor program. However, you can go to almost any Toastmasters club online and you'll find that creative people that we are, we have made something that looks very similar to those particular handouts or logs. So let's take a look at them. The new member profile. So this one is available to you, of course, and I consider this, as we talked about, to be an icebreaker script. So when using this one, if you take a look at some of the things that are on there, it goes through some personal data, and then it also talks about the communication and leadership goals that they might have. So you're having a conversation as you're getting to know this person, and you're also jotting down some information to transfer to the next form. Down at the bottom, you'll see that it asks, how are you with these particular competencies and skills? And of course, they align with our pathways, 5 levels. Start checking those off and see where you can be of help to them. A good question here before we move on to the other forms that I have came to us a little bit before the meeting, and it was, realistically, how many fellow Toastmasters can be served by one mentor? Okay, ideally, one-on-one is best. However, I came from a corporate club, as Keith had mentioned, and when we would have an open house, oftentimes we would have maybe 3 to 5 new members starting around the same time, and we mentored them as a small group. Now, the caveat there is that they were all on the same campus for the organization, so it was pretty easy to get their bodies to a room to do that. It is still doable virtually if you can coordinate everything to work out time-wise. Otherwise, I would say one-on-one is still better, and there is really no requirement for doing only one or not doing more than one. Let's take a look at the next form. The Protege Success Plan. So this is one of the Pathways mentor documents, but take a look at what's on there. It's a log of long-term goals, medium-term goals, and short-term goals. It asks for a time frame for completing them and what are those goals. What you want to do is make sure you've got them written someplace. So make a form like this, beg, borrow, or steal from another Toastmasters club because they're out there generously offering materials. And keep a log because it helps you to track back to see how far you've come with your protege. Mentor communication tracking log. This is another one. It's part of the mentor program, and it's also called the mentor meeting tracker. So if you go outside of Toastmasters.org, you will find a lot of these out there. It's the date of the communication, what did you talk about, and then keeping note of any action items that happen. Great. This is a fun one. So this is the Progress Achievement Tracker, which Toastmasters sells for $15. I'm not saying you shouldn't get it. You want it, go get it. It's at the Toastmasters store on Toastmasters.org. But there are also a lot of them out there. And I'm giving credit to District 52, as you can see at the bottom of this slide, because somebody pulled together a tracker for every single project in all 11 of the Pathways paths. I would certainly make use of this, share it with my protege so that they're on track, keeping a log of how they made their success happen so far. This is that other incidental that I had referred to earlier, that you might have something you use in your club that is just wonderful. This is mine. This is by Matthew Klonowski. I think I found this about 3 years ago. Somebody had shared it with me. It's 10 things learning to use Toastmasters pathways and base camps. You can get that directly from Matthew. I tried to see if it was on his website, but it looks like you have to solicit him personally. It goes through everything with screenshots, as I mentioned, with how-tos, answers a lot of questions, and it might even be good for you as a mentor to walk through that before you start doing your mentorship. And of course, the Pathways Learning Experience. Toastmasters.org, it's all out there. You can choose the path. You can help your protege access through Basecamp. And of course, the navigator is always available for a good resource. I'm not going to say that the Pathways Mentor Program is anything except wonderful, because it is. I took it, it takes about a year to complete it, and it's offered to all Toastmasters after they complete their level 3 in any one of the paths. I highly recommend it. It's got a lot of information, and it's something that will make you even more successful as both a Toastmaster and if you go on to be a mentor. Okay, the last section here is what I call each one is a unique individual, because they are. You're going to run into some unique individuals when you are doing your mentoring. The challenge comes when a protege is not ready to move in the direction you want them to move as you lead them. So it's important for mentors to recognize when applying a little gentle pressure as a form of encouragement is good, and when to step back, because there may be something that the protege is not understanding, is not comfortable with, and needs to set a different pace or go a different direction. Never forget, all of it is about your protege. So let me share a few of the Toastmasters I've mentored over the years, and the names have been changed to protect the people who have tested my patience. I know, I'm supposed to be patient. I usually am. I'm working on it. Let's go with number 1. Our first is the reluctant protege, and I'm going to call this person Jan. Jan was a gung-ho protege at the start. She came in with a bang and then tapered off to nothing. After much prompting, scheduling of meetings, being stood up by Jan, I had to have a point blank discussion with her. It went something like, Jan, it seems like this might not be the appropriate time for you to work with Toastmasters. So if you'd like to put our mentoring on the back burner for a while, we can do that. That opened the door to, ta-da, knowledge. She spent quite a bit of time telling me that not only is she employed full-time, she's trying to start a competitive business against her employer. She is completing her MBA, and she's acting as a mother to one of her grandchildren because her daughter decided she didn't want to be a mother. As you can see, mentors sometimes need to have a talk that's quite frank with the protege. She did come back, but eventually tapered off, and she's still on my usual suspects list, always getting invited. My second person is your fast-moving protege, Neil. Neil joined Toastmasters after his very first meeting as a guest. Who could ask for more? I mean, I think Neil even signed up the application and paid his fee at that very first meeting. Before I became his mentor, he already had logged into Pathways, took his assessment, scheduled his icebreaker. And you may be thinking, what's wrong with that? Well, Neil skipped most of the basic information, such as following the Pathways Navigator, taking the pre-assessments, watching the project videos and associated resources. Despite offering to help him by walking through the things we talked about so far in this session, he decided he was off and running. And about a month later, Neil was gone. He didn't respond to any further emails or phone calls. He was off. And then finally, one of my favorites is the I don't need a mentor protege. We'll call this one Sammy. So it can be a male or a female. Sammy. Sammy came in as a lead from Toastmasters International. I introduced myself as the mentor and asked for some time for our first mentor meeting. I asked again and again. We finally did meet, but Sammy was a protege who, although he had never been a Toastmaster before, was very certain that he could maneuver through the club website, Toastmasters website, Pathways, all on his own. Gentle persuasion on my part to meet and go over some of the basics never happened. I was resisted in every way possible. He was on his own path, but not what I would call the path of success. At the end of our club meetings, when our president would ask for guests for their comments, often Sammy would raise his hand because he had a question. He would ask things like, how come I can't move to the things in level 2? I know all that stuff in level 1. Or, my project says I'm supposed to give a speech and then take the feedback and give that speech again. I don't think that's valuable. So I want to skip that and go ahead. How do I do that? It didn't appear that Pathways learning system was something Sammy was interested in following. So before we head on to the questions, I have one more I'm going to answer for you at this point. I was asked is there a way for a small Toastmasters club to obtain the services of an outside Toastmaster who could act as the club mentor until that club reaches its critical membership level? My suggestion is to first ask your area director for help. He or she may be aware of something that's out there, somebody that's out there who wants to help in that way. Also at the district level, you could contact one of them, or perhaps your area director will, to find out if there is any Toastmaster aspiring to complete the DTM who might like to take on mentorship as a DTM completion project. So there's always a way to help out. Keith, I'm going to turn the session over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Susan.
You're welcome.
A lot of information there, very, very complete. And we'll open it up to the audience now if there are any other questions that you might have, and they don't necessarily have to be for Susan. They could be just directed to whomever, and we have a number of experienced Toastmasters here who have perspectives as well. So what kind of questions are out there?
I see Carl has a question.
All All
I'm
right.
sorry, Tom Carlson, sorry.
Tom, you have Tom, I think from Tom, it's going to be a comment. That's my guess.
Not really.
Okay, great.
I don't know how to take that remark, Keith.
Because I figured you know it all, Tom. You've seen it all.
Why do you think I've been a member for over 43 years? Because I don't know it all yet.
There you go.
Susan, people often, in telling people about Toastmasters or even new visitors at a club meeting, will often say to them, you can work at your own pace. It's kind of like saying that you can take as long as you want, more than saying you can move as fast as you want. When someone is assigned a mentor, is that possibly going to be taken as being pushed?
Well, it could. I mean, everybody's an individual. They might consider that. But moving at your own pace would be the pace that's comfortable for the protege. And it's important for the mentor to try and figure out what that pace is. And if they're moving too slow, and I mean too slow, meaning they never get the icebreaker scheduled. There's something else standing in their way. And that's where a discussion has to be had. They can move faster, of course, as long as they're following through. So they don't end up like Neil did, asking questions that were irrelevant had he worked with his mentor. I don't know if that answers your question specifically, Tom, but I would say it really is self-paced. And one of the things that the mentor wants to do is let the protege take the lead. If they're not leading, then that's where the gentle push comes in.
Can a protege move too fast?
Yes, they can when they're avoiding doing all of the steps in their projects. So for example, if I think, well, I know how to mentor, I don't have to do the video, I don't have to do the speech on that. I'll just get up and say something at a meeting and try to get credit for that. Then they are moving too fast. If they're asking questions that the mentor could have helped them with, for example, how do I get on the agenda at our Toastmasters meetings? They're moving too fast. They haven't asked the right questions.
If that's the case, will you tell them to slow down?
Yes. I try to develop a relationship with my proteges, and frankly, I will ask them, how pushy do you want me to be? Do you want me to really be a PETA, or do you want me to be very gentle? Coming from a corporate coach perspective, there are goals that are set, and they're usually watched to make sure that they're being met by the leaders who assigned you as a corporate coach. So I will push them as much as I think they can tolerate, because most people need that little nudge. And as long as it's done in a nice, respectful way, I don't see anything wrong with that. I invite other people to answer if they've had that issue themselves.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, Yuri's got his hand raised, his virtual hand.
Hi, Yuri.
Hi, Susan. To me, it sounds like the information you shared tonight likely reflects your own experience as a protege from someone else. Would you share an example of what they did well or not did well that kind of reflected onto you and help you to avoid that mistake?
Why, yes, I have been a protege myself more than once before I even know that I was what protege was. But I've had, in Toastmasters, I believe I've had some really good help in that people who took the time to walk me through things and didn't think it was really weird when I asked questions about what's an icebreaker. So we're talking a long time ago. I went to my very first Toastmasters meeting in the mid-1980s. So I have a whole decade in there where I didn't do any Toastmasters. There was a lot of personal stuff going on in there. But I think back then, people did not help as much because they didn't want to be in your face. I'd rather have you be in my face and tell me what I need to do. And so the people that have been my best mentors are the ones who asked me how I like to receive feedback, kept me on track, made sure that I set goals and followed up, and that they followed up. So if they didn't see me moving forward, ask me why. Because maybe I've got a sickness in my family. If I've got little kids, there's a good chance that they're going to take up a lot of time and the speech is going to be coming after that. The bad mentors were the ones that didn't care. And I can't say that's any time in my last 13 years experience with, 16 years experience with Toastmasters, because I think that the way that the program is designed, even in the old education method and even now, there was always accountability. And so it was really hard to do a bad job because there were so many people that you could ask for help. So I would have to say I've been fortunate, not had a lot. And the other part of it is I was kind of a self-starter. I would probably be the one who's jumping ahead, putting the TV together without reading the instructions, which means I was going to fail. Thanks for asking, Yuri.
All right. Well, I've got a question, or at least a topic. Who do you think should assign the mentor?
Okay, that's a good question. I can tell you how we do it in the Menominee Falls Club. The vice president of membership assigns the mentor. That's yours truly. And I know who my pool of mentors are. I know who they have been assigned to. I know how busy they are, both personally and in the club. I can see their progress and I know who's good. And so that means I've got inside information. I also know who's up and coming. So I am the person who, after I know they've got about their first level done, I'm going to ask them, would you consider being a mentor? You just went through that yourself not so long ago. You'd be perfect, and you're still going to be learning as you go through it. So I have experience in my previous club and now 3 years in Menominee Falls of being the vice president of membership, and I'm the person who did the assigning. I don't know that a vice president of education would be a good person. Somebody who's in tune with the progress of the new member.
Any other clubs do that differently? Looks like Tony's trying to talk, but you're on mute, Tony.
I just unmuted myself.
Yeah.
Thanks for mentoring me on how to unmute myself. What's the relationship between speech crafts and mentoring?
That's an interesting one.
I
That's a
think
real interesting.
in the actual Speechcraft program, the new participants, they're paired up with a regular Toastmaster, and they just help through and mentor them through that Speechcraft program. If that Speechcraft participant decides to join that club, they could continue with that same person as a mentor within the club. They've already started to build a relationship, or they could get assigned and work with a new mentor themselves. But it's not a given that they have to continue with that same person then.
Thanks.
Scanning the audience here for any other questions. I've got another one. What if the protege doesn't have any goals? So I like the worksheet, where you had the short-term, medium-term, long-term goals. It's been my experience, if you asked a new member, what's your goal in Toastmasters? It might be anywhere from nothing to just a few words. So I want to be a better speaker. I think a lot of people, maybe that's all the thought they've put into it. So, how could you help a protege develop goals that maybe they don't even know they have?
Yeah, so in that mentoring program for Pathways, it's actually there's 3 parts to it. The first one, you give that initial speech of your experience as a protege, talking about your mentor. The second part is to work with someone who's more of a brand new member. So you're working with them for a couple of speeches, couple of meetings. That third part is working with someone for 6+ plus months. That's one that's not necessarily for a brand new Toastmaster. When I did that project, I worked with a new area director. So we had that whole year. We set up right away in July. What are your goals personally that have to relate to that area director role? So we tied in what she had to do in that role itself, and then we built upon it. And again, getting somebody who's a little bit more experienced, but now they still need more mentoring because they're in a new challenge for them. You know more about them. You start having those conversations and you pick up on little details of what they talk about that they never even considered that that's part of a goal or a plan. But you as their mentor, ooh, here, let's make this as part of our plan. You talked about you wanted to give more speeches, so as an area director, make sure when you go to your clubs and you give your area director report that you are contacting those clubs in advance. You're asking for 5 to 7 minutes so you can get an actual speech in, and you have to do that follow-up to bring your evaluation paperwork to get that credit. Because I've talked with other people, well, I gave speeches at every single meeting when I was an area director. I never thought about applying any of that to myself personally for my pathways completions. She had not thought about, yes, I have to go and talk to these clubs. Use that as part of your growth and your planning as well. And again, you're seeing and hearing different ideas that they have no idea on. That's why you are their mentor. And you push them gently into directions of where you see that potential as well.
Let me add something to that. Having completed the program, I believe my short term with the first part of the mentor program, I worked with a brand new member for 4 months. Then I did work with the 6-month person as well. During that time, he was going through a promo at work. So he'd only been there a year, was already getting a promo. And we started tying in some of what he was doing in Toastmasters to how he could use that on his job. Because now he's going to have a team. And he wasn't just sitting in the conference room doing his regular work. He's directing other people. And getting up in front of that group and looking like he really knows what he's talking about and taking the lead really was a benefit to him. And to his credit, he became one of our club officers within that first year as well. So thank you, Chris, for filling that in. And that's my personal experience. Oh, and what if they don't want to set goals? In visiting some of my clubs and including my own club, I know that there are some people who just like to give speeches. They will give a speech because they have a presentation coming up at their business. They are giving a Father of the Bride speech coming up. They have to give something at a funeral, and they're just there because they love the socializing and they're offering their expertise back to us. I don't know that I would push them too much as long as they want to stay members. I mean, they're fun people. So they have to set some goals, and maybe their goal is just making us a happy club.
Jason, do you have your hand? Yep.
Yeah.
Looks like it.
Yeah, I did. Just a theme I'm hearing and a couple of thoughts is the idea of really listening to those members that you're trying to support as a member and really understanding them. And while they may not have a clear goal, by listening and understanding, you can help steer them in a direction, particularly if they're new and don't understand the program or feel very uncomfortable. There was a comment in the chat about a member that was struggling to even do table topics, and the first time they hit the green, the club found that as a gigantic success. Finding where that member is, meeting them where they are, and then helping them get over that next hump. Or when they have no construct, trying to give them some construct and talk about, does that feel reasonable? Does it feel reasonable to you as a new member that you try to participate in every meeting you attend in some way, either by having a role or doing a table topic? That's a goal you can set together. Does it feel reasonable to try to set a goal to give one speech a quarter as a starting point? Maybe that feels like too much, because I know for me, when I was new, that was too much for me, the one speech a quarter. I didn't give my icebreaker for a year. It took me that long to feel comfortable. But I focused on, and my mentor focused me on then, well, let's talk for 30 seconds, 1 minute. Let's work up through the roles in the meeting and build that confidence so that you can go and do the next step and the next step and the next step. So just some other thoughts there about really listening, really understanding, and trying to meet the member where they are, but going, hey, you really should. Why don't you? What's your obstacle? You'll always be nervous was eventually the thing that got me pushed to finally do my icebreaker was you'll always be nervous, and I still am nervous today, all these years later. So just a couple other thoughts.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that, Jason. Laura, did you have your hand up earlier? There we go.
Yeah, it was just a comment on my experience when I first joined the club. That was back in 2013. At the first meeting, a couple of people approached me to be my mentor. And I remember I was shy, uncomfortable. I didn't want anybody to mentor me. I didn't really know that much about it back then. And I suppose some people coming into the club knew. So far, I haven't had that experience with new people. I was assigned as a mentor to a new member who joined about a month ago. So this is very valuable information, and a lot of it. Thank you, Susan. A tremendous amount of information, and just trying to absorb it all. But yeah, but that was just my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, there was a lot of information, and we'll get a copy of your presentation, Susan, so we can put it up on the website. And then, of course, if you want to go back and review this whole hour, yeah, we're gonna have that up on the district website as well. Okay, we're closing in towards the end of time. Tom, you had another comment?
This will be a quick one.
Okay.
Can a mentor be as effective attending only remotely?
I'll take that, yes, because let me go back to when I was working on my large project where I was mentoring somebody. I spent 3 months in Arizona, and those 3 months were just fine. We worked online, we worked in phone, and my protege did very well. And I did ask for feedback all the time. So outside of a couple of quirky things with Zoom every once in a while, it worked just fine. So yes, you can be a mentor via virtual just as easy, maybe easier than if you're in person. I like the in-person better, but the virtual works.
I do too, but we have to live in the world that we live in right now.
That's right.
Sometimes that's just not possible. All right, Todd, I think you had your hand up. Maybe we can get one more in here.
I was just going to wonder if your district has a district-wide mentoring kind of program. Because in District 61, one of the HPL projects that someone did was, it's called Ignite the Fire, and it's a handbook with all kinds of different modules and worksheets, and it's a way to figure out if you're an internal or an external kind of person that wants to be prodded or pushed or coerced or whatever. So I wasn't sure if you guys had access to a resource like that.
Leave that to the district leadership to answer that question. Who do we have? We got Jennifer, we got Jason.
Yes, I can chip in first. Thank you, Todd, for sharing that. I'll be talking to your district director on Wednesday, and I'll get inside scoop on that. Thank you so much. And I think it's excellent, very much needed. And so is the team coaching that you guys, Jason and Keith, you're spearheading. And Susan, you're masterful. I also enjoyed the new club presentation that was done. It was really great. Thank you for bringing that to us.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks again, Susan, for your presentation and the discussion tonight. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We're a couple minutes over already. As I mentioned earlier, we'll get this presentation and the recording up on the district website real soon. If you want to go back and review it or share it with other members of your club or other members of your area, there's a resource for you to use now. All right, next up in 2 weeks, March 6th, we're going to have Carol Mather talking about organizing, leading an open house. So that's another exciting opportunity to bring in new members and maybe even invigorate some of our existing members. So we'll be looking forward to that on March 6th. With that, I'll say good night to everyone. Thanks for attending, and hopefully
you,
see you back
everybody.
in a couple weeks. So long.